Let's hop across the desk now. Flo Vielmano is back with us, taking us through what's been making headlines around the world this morning, and lots of focus, of course, on the US and Donald Trump's much anticipated speech to the nation.
That's right. I'm not sure if there was any Rick-rolling in his speech.
I didn't hear any.
I didn't hear it either, but it certainly is getting a lot of attention. And some papers aren't just buying what he was selling during that speech. Let's take a look at Slate today. They say that Donald Trump's speech was just another scam. The world he described doesn't exist. Trump essentially made the broad case for a United States that's soaked in blood, rife with chaos. But Slate says, if you look at the statistics, Americans are safer now than they've been in a generation. But it seems like Trump just doesn't care about
It didn't sound like that, did it, from listening to this?
That's right. Now, Slate says that Trump really wanted to paint a picture of disorder and violence to essentially scare Americans into voting for him. And this is something that a lot of papers are picking up on. The New York Times as well is focusing on this aspect of his speech. He portrayed himself over and over as an almost messianic figure prepared to rescue the country from the ills of urban crime, illegal immigration, and global terrorism. There's one quote in particular that the New York Times and other papers are picking up on. That's when he said, "I alone can fix it."
Well, one thing that could use fixing, some might say, is the Republican Party itself. And many saying that this convention actually revealed some major divisions in the party.
That's right. I like the way Politico puts it today. It says, what can we learn from Trump's Cleveland? Well, the GOP, so the Republican Party, remains divided on ideology, but united in attitude. Simmering tensions between conservatism and populism boiled in Cleveland, and the Washington Post today points out that all this is very good for Democrats. You can see the headline here. The Republicans delivered a convention softball for Democrats to hit out of the park. Now, that's a baseball metaphor. There's a long list of metaphors for the convention as well. It was a hot mess, a dumpster fire, a train wreck. Essentially, it didn't set the bar very high for the Democrats, of course, that are kicking off their convention in the next week.
Well, that convention dominating the US media, but there's also another story dominating the press in the States. That's this incident, another police shooting of an unarmed black man, this time in Florida.
That's right. You can get all the details in the Miami Herald. This incident was caught on tape. You can see a link to the video there on their website. So essentially, this was a caretaker named Charles Kinsey. He was trying to retrieve a 23-year-old autistic man playing in the street with a toy truck. Now, police ordered him on the ground. He complied. You can see he had his hands in the air, and yet the police shot him in the leg with an assault rifle. The Daily Beast says, he's really lucky to be alive, and they have a quote saying, he asked the cop, "Sir, why did you shoot me?" And the cop allegedly responded, "I don't know."
We'll keep an eye on that story for you. For now, let's move on to some news coming out of Turkey. And papers still focusing on the aftermath of last week's failed coup.
That's right. Now, authorities have announced a 3-month state of emergency. That's huge news in Turkey. You can see here the front page of Hurriyet Daily News, which is also focusing on the fact that authorities decided to suspend the European Convention of Human Rights. Now, the president is continuing his purge of state institutions, and this is raising a lot of concern about the fate of the opposition. There's a really strong cartoon today in Courrier International. This is by the cartoonist Tom. You can see depicting the opposition here as a dead body shroud in the Turkish flag.
Let's have a quick word on something lighter now. Pokemon Go, the game taking the world by storm, really, but some countries are concerned.
That's right. The New York Times has details about this. Now, this game is notorious for causing people to range out into the world, walk into places where they might not normally go, point their smartphones, cameras at buildings and historic sites, and security authorities around the world are freaking out, according to the New York Times. Bosnia, for instance, is very concerned that people might wander into areas where there are landmines. Meanwhile, in Russia, some media is claiming that this is just a CIA plot, and religious figures in Russia have been quick to denounce it as Satanism, in fact. The Al Jazeera, on their website, they report about the situation in the Middle East. In Saudi Arabia, for instance, clerics renewed an existing fatwa against the Pokemon, calling it un-Islamic. And meanwhile, in Syria, this is a very interesting take on this story. Children have been taking photos of themselves holding up pictures, you can see here, of Pokemon, saying they hope people will find them. This photo, for instance, the sign reads, "I'm Kafrin Nabal in the outskirts of Idlib. Come save me." Now, these photos were posted by media outlets working to raise awareness about Syrians who are still fighting against the al-Assad regime.
Oh gosh, how sad. Thank you, Florence Filmanot, taking us through the press review. Thanks also to Kate Moody with the day's business stories. You're watching France 24. I'm Hala Mohideen. Good morning.